What's up? My name is Eric Butler. This channel is called Report and Opine. I am back, and from the SF Gate, what the F happened to this place? Dave Chappelle rails on San Francisco at surprise show. Now, I can assume the SF Gate will take issue with this. They will completely ignore reality and pretend that most things are okay, and the solutions to the problems that they don't even really want to admit they have is just a couple more government handouts for some dope fiends, when we can literally see the collapse happening in real time for decades now. Businesses are leaving, notably Whole Foods, Walgreens, Nordstrom, Saks Fifth Avenue. The list goes on, and loads of small businesses that are not household names, I can assume, are also struggling because they got bums defecating out front, they got needles everywhere, they got vandalism, they got heavy theft and heavy regulation from the California government itself. But I'm sure it's not that bad, and Dave Chappelle is, in fact, Clayton Bigsby, black white supremacist, and now noted transformophobe. They say, SF Gate culture editor, I'm sure he shoots it straight, Dan Gentile saw the controversial comedian's last-minute San Francisco set. So you can call him controversial if you want, and I'm sure there's a very small sliver of the general population that would call him controversial, but most people would probably just call him a comedian and realize that most of the time when he's on stage talking, he's joking. But they don't care about that. Obviously, you are not allowed to joke anymore in 2023. They say, a half hour into the Dave Chappelle show Thursday night at the Masonic, the crowd started yelling. They yelled that they loved him. They yelled to ask him to repeat lines from his old Comedy Central show. Yeah, because people like him, and he's a classic for more than 2 decades now. They yelled because they wanted to know what he thought of the homeless person who got sprayed with a hose in San Francisco earlier this year. And this is how low the bar has gotten that I can give credit to the SF Gate for actually using the term homeless instead of person experiencing houselessness or an unhoused person. That's how low the bar is, that just using the term homeless is, E for effort. You get a little bit of credit for that no matter how corrupt you are, because that's how awful the entire media landscape has become. To his credit, Chappelle didn't yell back. Instead, he engaged with the audience, part of his decades-long dialogue with a city that he referred to during the show as his second home. He described playing hundreds of shows here earlier in his career, quote, using the city like an ATM whenever he needed a paycheck, because people actually like him. Even in crazy left-wing establishment hack shill San Francisco, they still like him. So that should let you know that there's a tiny little sect of the population that just don't want other people to hear words that they don't like, right? I mean, they call him controversial, and all these bills are being passed all over the country because they all hate us. No, it's because they're actually normal people, and you guys are the extremists forcing your weirdo beliefs down the throat of everybody else. The type of audience back and forth he experienced Thursday night isn't unprecedented at his San Francisco shows, and the feedback has had a large role in shaping his most controversial opinions. Controversial to who? Some weirdo gender ideologue who's going to pretend that they are something that they are not, and of course force you to pretend as well, and if you don't, bludgeon you, physically assault you? That's what makes him controversial, is him, saying a joke about, which I guess in their defense maybe isn't a joke for him to say, well, every person in this room had to pass through a woman, but then we can't tell you what a woman was, but then also it's a woman's right to choose, and it's birthing person's day and chest feeding, and of course trans men can get pregnant too. It's all absolute nonsense, and the fact that Dave Chappelle is still popular in San Francisco should be proof of that. Moving on, the late transgender comic Daphne Dorman confronted him during a performance at the Punchline, which sparked a friendship between the comics. Dorman later canceled herself, himself, they, them, ze, zim, zerself, no shade. Around the same time, Chappelle's comedy took a dark turn towards transformophobia. Yeah, it took a dark turn towards reality because these people hate when reality shows up at the door. It's very scary for them because their entire world is going to collapse, even though these are the very same people that a year ago told you to follow the science, bigot. But now when the science doesn't really work in their favor, oh, well, we got new science. We got new pseudoscience. Just believe our word, right? Because as we know, there's been a running theme of this channel is that every single one of their talking points, every single one of their agendas will undoubtedly, like clockwork, every single time conflict with another one of their talking points or agendas. Because it's a power play, right? It's not actually about anything they ever say it's about. It's a power play to make to gauge how many idiots will listen to them no matter the nonsense they're spewing. It's real like, whack-a-mole, jump through the hoop, jump through these little ring of fires, pick up each little droplet of nonsense that we put on the ground, and if you don't, you're going to be in trouble. And in San Francisco, this could actually turn physical very quickly. I've seen it happen. Shout out Philip Anderson. I don't know if anybody remembers him, and we can talk about whether Philip Anderson was a grifter at a different point in time. But a black man who set up a rally, a free speech rally in San Francisco, had his teeth knocked out by somebody with some sort of tactical gloves for a rally, right? And it goes without saying, can you imagine if the shoe were on the other foot, right? We're going to say that 100 million times. Moving on. Yeah, a dark turn towards transphobia. How about a very reasonable turn towards making fun of people who are trying to eliminate reality? Okay, that's what actually happened. He identifies as a TERF, trans exclusionary radical feminist. So it's not even really a dark turn. It's like a slight left turn because he's still a feminist. And we all know that typically, traditionally, most, hard right conservatives wouldn't identify themselves as a feminist, maybe an early feminist, and even that's debatable, right? Because, anyways, moving on. Declared that gender is an unmalleable fact, and insinuated that the struggle for LGBTQ and black rights are at odds. Boom. Every one of their talking points, every single one of their agendas is going to be at odds with another one if you, in fact, try to take it to its illogical conclusion. Chappelle didn't go deep into his TERF beliefs Thursday. Instead, he settled for a barrage of transformer-phobic dog whistles. So now only things that they can hear, right? We can't hear it. Regular people can't hear it. Even in San Francisco, people that love Dave Chappelle, they can't hear it. It's only the sliver of the population that knows what he really means when he says a certain word or when he makes a certain joke. The dog whistle. We love it, right? That means it's not really happening, but we need a scapegoat. We got to do something. We can't just sit here and not have a grievance. We can't just sit here and complain and laugh at a joke. That's not going to fly. We got to find something to be mad at now. So we're going to call it a dog whistle. For those following his career closely, they drowned out everything else. But what was crystal clear was his disdain for present-day San Francisco. Facts. Chappelle, who was at the Warriors playoff game Wednesday, fondly recounted meeting Steph Curry as a rookie, and that was just about the only good thing he had to say about the city. And that in itself can make him like pretty, center-left. I guess maybe you want to call him center-right because center-right at this particular point in time just means common sense. But we all know Steph Curry is a shill. We all know that Steve Kerr is a shill. Right? They're going to talk about gun control and women's rights and all this stuff that they don't know what they're talking about because they get their talking points from on high, somewhere up in the NBA establishment propaganda elite, talking point Bible that they give them. They all parrot it. There's very few NBA players that won't. I can think maybe Jonathan Isaac, Kwame Brown, who of course is no longer in the NBA. Different story. At a show that, was announced only 2 days earlier. Moving on. On his last visit to Chase Center, he brought Elon Musk on stage to a chorus of boos. And the time before that, a Hall of Fame's worth of Bay Area rappers. Okay, so a handful of more establishment propaganda shills. At this event, there were no special guests. He didn't mention Musk. Instead, he focused on the city's homelessness problem or people experiencing houselessness issue. Right? They're also trying to get rid of the word prisoner. I think that's in New York, but we know that they are going to follow the same playbook, and naturally, that's a different story. Moving on. What the F happened to this place, he asked. He told a story about eating at an Indian restaurant in the Tenderloin. Well, there's your problem. If you're going to eat at a restaurant, especially an Indian restaurant, no shade, especially in the Tenderloin, you're not going to have a good time. Only to have someone defecate in front of the restaurant as he was walking in. San Francisco has become half Glee, half zombie movie. Absolute facts. And he remarked that the whole city is the Tenderloin now. Y'all need Batman. Yeah, it's funny because it's true, unfortunately. And I can remember a time being, in San Francisco and watching people kind of pass out in the Mission District. I'm eating a burrito at a taqueria, and there's ambulances going everywhere, and there's dope fiends dropping like flies. And I made a joke to my friends at the time that, like, oh, they got the fire pack, like they all got a hot bag of dope from a bad dope dealer. And back then, my friends were not too happy with that joke. And I'm no Dave Chappelle, fair enough, but if you see 3, 4, 5 people on one block passing out, ambulances everywhere, then they probably got a bag of dope from the same dealer. Like, funny because it's true. Not the point. Moving on. He wasn't aware of the incident of a business owner hosing down a homeless person. All right, shout out again for using the real word. And shout out to Dave Chappelle for not being deep enough into this to know about that story and had to have the crowd explain it. He pivoted quickly, saying he now remember watching the video on YouTube 100 times. The misdirection was followed by a cruel snicker and a trademark slap of the mic against his thigh. Okay, really painting a picture here. If you follow comedy or pop culture news, you know Chappelle has said plenty of irresponsible and dangerous things. Okay, that's you. That's the SF Gate injecting their point of view. Plenty of irresponsible and dangerous things. They're words. What could it have been? It made a transformer angry? Is that what you mean? That's what makes him controversial? Give me a break. Like Musk, Joe Rogan, and Kanye West. Now, keep in mind that Joe Rogan and Dave Chappelle have been friends for decades, right? Remember when when Joe Rogan had hair on the Dave Chappelle show, passing out ribbons for beautiful New York boobs. He has insulated himself from criticism with a combination of incredible talent and incredible wealth. Yeah, because people like him, and he's been doing his job at an incredible level for more than 2 decades. Nothing buttresses self-righteousness like being able to scream, "I'm rich, bitch," and mean it. But like those other antagonists, Chappelle's delusions get the best of him. Oh, okay. So the San Franciscans, who are trying to force you to believe that a 6'3" man with a size 13 shoe is really a woman, and Dave Chappelle is the delusional one. San Francisco, that has residents who can barely afford to live there while walking over needles and human feces and dodging tents on the sidewalk while the mayor declares a state of emergency in the Tenderloin. And Dave Chappelle is the unreasonable one, and he's the delusional one. And his delusions are getting the best of him. Give me a break. This is ridiculous. Chappelle didn't repeat the "I'm rich, bitch" line from his TV show as an audience member requested. He said he wouldn't do it because he doesn't consider himself rich. That led to another audience member to ask why he doesn't think he's rich when he has surpassed 20 pieces of property in his home of Yellow Springs, Ohio. In the set's most eloquent moment, Chappelle responded that given the way black people are treated in his country, no amount of money could make him feel rich. And there you have it. So even at the end, he still capitulates to the left in a different way, but it's not enough because, as we know, you can parrot 99 out of 100 talking points, but if you don't get the 100th, you will be burned at the stake. Most of the rest of the set was commentary on personal incidents that ended up in the news. Chappelle did an extended bit about being caught on camera at Floyd Mayweather strip club in Las Vegas and spoke about how being attacked on stage at the Hollywood Bowl, by a delusional transformer. But he's the one, right? I mean, the gaslighting, I know the term is overused, but it's just through the roof. He literally gets attacked on stage by a gender ideologue, let's say, and the SF Gate has the nerve to call him the delusional one. It's absolutely ridiculous. A recent tour with Chris Rock led to a lengthy discussion of the Will Smith slap. There was also a reference to criticism of anti-Semitic elements in his Saturday Night Live monologue. And that's another one that will always conflict with itself because, white people are constantly the problem, but you guys like Joe Biden, you like Gavin Newsom, right? You like Scott Wiener because they get, I don't know how Gavin Newsom and Joe Biden are flying under the radar. Scott Wiener gets a pass because he's gay and Jewish, so, you got to have a victim card somewhere. But why is it that you can have this disdain for white people and still vote all of these people into office in California? It doesn't make any sense. But in the media, those incidents were all footnotes compared to the controversy over his comments on the transformer community, in addition to being insensitive. Okay, so there it is. It's insensitive. That's why you're mad. That's why you're mad. That's why he's delusional. That's why he's controversial, is because he says something that you thought was insensitive that didn't capitulate to the feelings of a weirdo. That's what happened. They are often just plain lazy, relying on tropes rather than the comedian's incisive wit. Incisive? I don't know. At the Masonic, Chappelle noted that in his last special, The Closer, he promised to stop making jokes about the LGBTQ community, but they won't stop making themselves into the butt of jokes, that's for certain. Then clarified that promise only applied to TV, punctuating the joke with another slap on the mic. Okay, so he said he wasn't going to do it on TV. And I don't know, is Netflix TV? We shall see. True to his word, there were no extended segments about the transgender community. Instead, he jabbed at the community over and over, slipping them into unrelated sections as a running punchline. Good for him. I'll admit that Chappelle is a virtuosic storyteller. Okay, bro, you're trying to sound smart. I get it. But I heard these dog whistles loud and clear, and it spoiled the set for me. However, I'm not sure how much of the audience really understood that context. Exactly. So what he's saying is, I know that I'm not going to accept him. I'm still mad because he made jokes in the last set, so we're going to call that a dog whistle. And I realized that most people didn't hear it, and actually a lot of people really like him. That's why they came to the show, and they're going to be sold out in minutes. But they just didn't understand the context. Give me a break, bro. You guys are absolutely pathetic. For those that follow pop culture news, Chappelle's okay. Did we already read this part? I feel like he already said this. For those that follow pop culture news, Chappelle's transformer phobia has been one of the biggest stories of the past few years. Yeah, I'm sure. It was a joke. He's a comedian, because you guys can call everybody else all the names in the book. But as soon as one stone gets thrown back in your direction, you're very mad and you want to cancel people and you want to ruin their life. It's the same thing we saw with this Rona nonsense and them destroying businesses and destroying people's lives, all to have it collapse and realize, okay, well, we didn't really need to do that. And then when people try to take advantage of the free money you were giving out, they're the ones. It's like you guys foisted all of this on people and you get one little taste of it, and now you want to ruin people's lives because they don't agree with you. But at least one attendee at the show, the guy sitting next to me, admitted to barely knowing anything about Chappelle. My Lyft driver was also clueless about the controversy, and so were several other people I spoke to recently. They only knew that Chappelle is a really funny comedian. Correct. And in a way, this set proved that they're not wrong. Correct. What's so complicated about comedy and almost everything in the year 2023 is the way that we try to wedge our beliefs into every single thing. Is that what you're going to say? Is that my oblivious neighbor and I watched the show through completely different lenses? Yeah, I bet you did. Right? Like, I'm watching it. I'm perched on a ledge just waiting to pounce on somebody who says something I don't like. And this guy is like, oh, I remember this show from 20 years ago. Yeah, let's go check him out. It could be funny. That's the difference. Controversial comedians these days. And when they say that's literally every comedian that doesn't capitulate to every single thing, like what Hannah Gatsby or Amy Schumer. Every single comedian that doesn't just parrot the lines will immediately be deemed controversial, at very best. Controversial comedians these days often hide behind the defense that they're just telling jokes. They're comedians. They are jokes. You're mad because the jokes are funny, and the jokes are funny because there's always a kernel of truth in it. That's why you're mad. In the same way that disingenuous political commentators are just asking questions. Yeah, and you guys, this media establishment are the same people who made it not okay to ask questions, right? Because you guys are supposed to be the ones asking questions, and then you lob a couple softballs to the politicians that I guess are lining your pockets. But when somebody wants to ask a protester who's out with a sign why they're out there, then they shut down because this ideology should not be questioned. And you are immediately a bigot. This is all absolutely insane. And Dave Chappelle is pointing this glaring light at it. Especially because he still talks about, oh, well, I'm black in America, so I'm never rich, which is completely untrue. You are a rich black American, but that's not enough capitulation for them. I personally think that extraordinarily influential people like Chappelle should be held accountable for their words, especially if their job is literally just to get on stage and talk. Yeah, so we should control the words that Dave Chappelle says. And if we don't like it, we should be able to shut it down. That's what they want. But it was clear from the amount of laughter in the room and his continual ability to sell out shows instantly, might I add, it doesn't take a whole day for Dave Chappelle to sell out a show, even in San Francisco. In the most LGBTQ plus friendly city in the world because they've all been brainwashed and they've all been beaten to submission by the mob, and they know that if they speak out, their lives will be ruined. So it's not really friendly at all, and that goes without saying. This is about control. This is about us demanding that you have the same views as we do, and if you don't, we're going to ruin your life. You will have to move and change your name, right? They would have you completely eliminated if they could, and we're not that far from it. I know that sounds dark, but think about it, bro. We're not that far out. There's still a large portion of the population who will only ever know him as the guy that did those Rick James impressions. Those fans weren't disappointed, but everyone else who's been paying attention would have been. So what he's saying here and all of this is that I don't think enough people were mad at Dave Chappelle, and I heard the dog whistles, and I don't like what he said, in his last special or special before that. So I'm going to claim that he's still doing it, but nobody else can hear it because I'm watching it through a different lens. Even as he says, in one of the world's most LGBTQ plus IA NFT friendly cities in the world, he still sells out shows instantly. So let that be a lesson to you. Just like the bills, the anti-LGBT whatever, the anti-bills that are getting passed all over the country, no, that's because you guys are the slim minority, and more people need to start standing up for reality. Maybe they were oblivious, maybe they were scared, maybe they didn't know, I don't know. But it needs to stop. Dylan Mulvaney, Leah Thomas, Jessica Yaniv, the baker in Colorado. I mean, the list goes on. It's absolutely nonstop. And now we have, on a different level, the Subway guy out in New York, which is, apples to oranges, but not really, because it's all about control. So anyways, thank you for watching. Please like, comment, share, and of course, subscribe.